When I returned home after a week-long business trip, I expected nothing more than the usual. Maybe a quiet dinner, a bit of catching up with Emily, and then easing back into our routine. But Emily had other plans, ones I could hardly have imagined. She waited until we'd settled in, both of us on the couch, a quiet evening ahead. Then, out of the blue, she dropped a bombshell. "Jack," she said, her tone so calm it was almost eerie. "I've been thinking a lot, and I want to talk to you about opening up our marriage." For a second, I thought I'd misheard her, or maybe she was joking. But her face was deadly serious, her eyes searching mine as if waiting for me to respond. A chill crept up my spine, and the room seemed to close in around me. We'd been married over 10 years. Never, not even in my darkest thoughts, had I considered something like this. And the way she said it, as if she'd rehearsed this moment, made me feel like I was the last to know. Are you serious?" I asked, barely able to keep my voice steady. Emily nodded, not flinching, not laughing, not even breaking eye contact. "Yes, Jack. I think it could bring us closer, give us the freedom to explore without losing what we have. Many couples do it successfully." Her words hung in the air, filling the silence with an unsettling tension. My mind was reeling, trying to make sense of it. Emily? My Emily, who used to blush at romantic scenes in movies, who once confessed that she couldn't imagine being with anyone but me. And now she wanted an open marriage? I took a deep breath, trying to ground myself. "Why now, Emily? Where is this coming from?" For a moment, she hesitated. Then she shrugged, as though discussing a change in dinner plans. "I've been reading about it, and a few friends of mine have tried it. They say it's liberating." Liberating. That word felt like a slap. I couldn't understand how someone I'd shared my life with, who'd once vowed to stand by me forever, could talk about something so monumental as if it were a simple lifestyle change. We'd built a life together, a solid life. And now she wanted to test its foundations. 1,000 questions flooded my mind, each one more painful than the last. Had she met someone already? Was I not enough? I looked at her, searching for any sign of the woman I thought I knew. But she was an enigma now, someone I didn't recognize. "Are you already seeing someone?" The question slipped out before I could stop it, my voice cracking with the weight of betrayal I hadn't yet confirmed. Her eyes softened, and she looked away, the faintest blush coloring her cheeks. "No, Jack. I haven't. But I think it's something that would make me happy. And I want you to be happy too." Her words cut deeper than if she'd admitted to cheating. She was effectively telling me that what we had wasn't enough. That I wasn't enough. I felt a surge of adrenaline rush through me, anger mingling with shock as I absorbed her words. Divorce? She was really prepared to throw everything away, just for a chance to, date around? To explore? The absurdity of it all made me want to laugh, but I knew there was nothing funny about this moment. Emily was dead serious, and the realization chilled me to my core. "Emily," I said, my voice steady but colder than I intended. "Are you really willing to throw away everything we've built? Just because you think this open marriage, could somehow make you happier?" She folded her hands in her lap, looking down, almost as if embarrassed, but I could see the stubbornness in her eyes. "Jack, I don't want to lose you. But I also don't want to live a life where I feel like I'm missing out. I know it sounds selfish, but I can't help how I feel." I could feel my jaw tighten, each of her words like another blow. "So, what then? We go off and see other people, maybe mess around, and then what? We come back to each other like nothing happened?" She nodded, her eyes filled with some wild hope, as if I might actually consider this absurd fantasy. "Yes, Jack. That's what I'm saying. We don't have to give up what we have. We'd just be adding something new." But this wasn't an addition, it was a subtraction. A subtraction of loyalty, of trust, of everything that made our marriage what it was. I could feel a dark thought creeping into my mind, and for the first time, I wondered if maybe I didn't know her at all. So let me get this straight, Emily, I said, my voice harsh and unforgiving. Either I agree to let you go off and be with other people, or we get a divorce. She swallowed hard, blinking rapidly as if she hadn't expected such directness. But she didn't back down. Jack, I can't pretend anymore. I know it's a lot to ask, but I think this could save us. I shook my head slowly, disbelief mingling with a rising fury. Save us? You think this is going to save us? By tearing apart everything that makes this marriage work? Her face softened, her expression almost pleading. It doesn't have to tear us apart. I'm trying to be honest with you, Jack. I want to give us both a chance to grow, to feel alive. And it's the only way I can see us doing that. I took a deep breath, trying to control the urge to shout, to make her see how twisted this sounded. Emily, the only thing that's going to come out of this open marriage is resentment, jealousy, and the end of everything we built. You're asking me to accept a version of you that I don't even recognize. I saw her blink, a flicker of surprise crossing her face. Jack, please, you don't understand. No, I understand perfectly, I interrupted, each word clipped. You think you'll be happier going off with other people, doing God knows what, and coming back to me when it's convenient. You want me to be here, waiting, trusting that this, whatever this is, won't change us. But it will, Emily. It already has. I could see her resolve wavering, her fingers nervously twisting her wedding ring. But she didn't back down. Instead, she looked up at me, her face set in that same calm, unreadable expression. Jack, if you can't accept this, if you really think it's going to break us, then maybe we shouldn't be together. Her words felt like a punch to the gut. She was serious. She was ready to end everything, all the years, all the memories, the plans we'd made, for the sake of this newfound freedom. And I could feel something inside me breaking. I stood up, the silence between us heavy with everything that hadn't been said. I took one last look at her, at the woman I thought I'd known, the woman I'd loved with everything I had. Then maybe we shouldn't, Emily, I said quietly, each word a weight lifted in a fresh wound all at once. If this is what you need, then maybe it's better if we go our separate ways. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of regret, of fear, cross her face. But just as quickly, it was gone, replaced by that same calm, distant gaze. She nodded slowly, as if bracing herself. Maybe you're right. I turned and walked away, feeling the finality in each step, the walls of our life together crumbling around me. I wanted to scream, to cry, to shake her and make her understand what she was throwing away. But I knew it was pointless. The woman I'd loved was gone, and in her place stood a stranger who couldn't see the life she was leaving behind. Sitting alone at a bar that night, nursing a drink I barely tasted, I felt completely untethered. My whole world had turned upside down in the span of a single conversation. Emily and I had built a life together, a solid, stable life, and now it felt like sand slipping through my fingers. I'd never even considered something like an open marriage. I didn't know anyone who'd ever seriously entertained the idea. Or maybe I did, and they just kept it quiet. I needed answers. I needed some kind of perspective. I fumbled my phone out of my pocket, staring at the contacts until my eyes fell on Ben's name. Ben and I had been close since college. He was the kind of guy who always had a new story, a new philosophy he was exploring, always up for something spontaneous. Maybe, I thought, just maybe, he had some insight into this madness. Maybe he could help me make sense of it. I pressed the call button and listened to the phone ring. It felt like an eternity before I heard his familiar, easygoing voice. Hey, Jack. What's up, man? You sound off. Everything okay? I let out a bitter laugh. Not really, Ben. Not really at all. What happened? He asked, his tone instantly serious. Is it Emily? I paused, staring down at my half-empty glass, the ice slowly melting. Yeah, it's Emily. She brought something up tonight. Something I wasn't ready for. Okay, he said, clearly waiting for more. What did she say? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of it all settle in my chest. She wants an open marriage. For a moment, there was silence on the other end. Then Ben let out a low whistle. Whoa, didn't see that coming. How are you feeling about it? Honestly, I don't know. She says it's what she needs to feel fulfilled or whatever, and that we'd both still be together, somehow. I couldn't keep the frustration out of my voice. I don't get it, Ben. I thought we were happy. I mean, I thought I was enough for her. Ben was quiet for a second. That's a lot to drop on you, man. I'm sorry. Yeah, well, I swirled the drink in my hand, watching the ice spin in the glass. Maybe I'm the one who's being too narrow-minded. Maybe it's just something people do now. I don't know. Do you think I'm wrong for not wanting this? There was a pause, and I could almost picture Ben rubbing the back of his neck, thinking over his words. Look, Jack, it's not about right or wrong. Relationships are complicated. But I think this hits people differently, you know? It's not just about wanting freedom, it's about trust and boundaries. Some people can handle it, and some can't. Do you know anyone who does? I asked, almost desperate for something that would either condemn or justify Emily's request. Well, actually, yeah, Ben admitted, surprising me. There's a couple I know from work who's been open for a few years now. They seem happy enough, I guess. But I don't know, man, they always struck me as different. Really different. Different how? I pressed, leaning forward, clutching the phone like it was a lifeline. I mean, it works for them, but they both went into the marriage with this idea of openness. They were always looking for something more. Neither of them had this traditional view of marriage, so for them, it was just part of the deal from the start. He paused, and I could hear the hesitation in his voice. But I think that's the key difference, Jack. They went into it knowing they'd have that kind of arrangement. It wasn't something they sprung on each other 10 years down the line. The truth of his words sank in, heavy and undeniable. Emily and I had never talked about anything like this, never hinted at wanting anything other than each other. We'd built our lives around what I thought was mutual trust and loyalty. But now it was as if I didn't know her at all. So, you're saying that it's not something that can just be thrown into a marriage? I asked, needing to hear it from someone else. I'm saying it's hard to shift the whole foundation of a relationship like that, Ben said gently. If this wasn't something you both agreed on from the beginning, then yeah, it's going to feel like betrayal. And honestly, Jack, it kind of is. I rubbed my forehead, the weight of it all pressing down. That's exactly what it feels like. A betrayal. Like everything we had was just a lie. Look, man, I know it's hard. But you have to decide what you can live with. There's no point in forcing yourself to be okay with something that goes against everything you believe in. You deserve to be happy too, Jack. I took a deep, shuddering breath. Thanks, Ben. Really. I don't know what to do. I don't know if I can just walk away, but staying feels impossible. Maybe you don't have to decide right now, he suggested gently. Give yourself time. And be honest with her. Tell her what this is doing to you. If she can't understand that, then maybe you have your answer. Yeah, I said, feeling both comforted and even more uncertain. Maybe you're right. We talked a bit more, Ben doing his best to lift my spirits and remind me that I wasn't alone in this. But when I hung up the phone, the emptiness settled back in. I'd always thought I could handle anything life threw at me, but this was something else entirely. I stayed at the bar a while longer, watching people come and go, all of them caught up in their own worlds, unaware of the storm raging inside me. The idea of an open marriage still felt foreign, wrong, but I couldn't ignore that it was what Emily wanted. And the more I thought about it, the more I wondered if I'd already lost her. I left the bar that night with a hollow feeling that no amount of advice or understanding could fill. I wasn't sure what I'd do or how I'd even begin to face Emily, but I knew one thing: I couldn't be something I wasn't. If that meant letting go of the life we'd built, then, maybe that's what I'd have to do. After a sleepless night, I sat in the living room, staring at the first rays of sunlight filtering through the blinds. The thought of losing Emily, of seeing everything we'd built collapse, filled me with a deep, hollow ache. This wasn't the life I'd ever imagined, nor a choice I thought I'd have to make. But in the end, I found myself agreeing, perhaps foolishly, to the very thing that felt like it would destroy me: an open marriage. When Emily came downstairs, her expression softened at the sight of me. I could tell she knew how much this was costing me, but her determination was unshakable. I'll give it a try, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. If this is what it takes to make you happy, if it's the only way to keep us together, then fine. I'll do it. For a moment, she looked surprised, and then something like relief washed over her. She took my hands in hers, squeezing them tightly. Thank you, Jack. I know this is hard for you, and I don't take that for granted. I just think, this could be good for us. I nodded, though I wasn't sure I believed it. The idea of Emily being with someone else felt like a knife twisting in my chest, but I tried to focus on the hope that maybe this would bring us closer, somehow restore what we'd lost. Maybe, in the end, it would prove to be a phase, a curiosity that she'd quickly tire of. So, how is this going to work? I asked, more because I needed clarity than out of curiosity. I had no idea what the rules or boundaries were supposed to be, and the thought of diving headfirst into the unknown made my stomach turn. Emily took a deep breath, her gaze steady. We set some ground rules, and we're always honest with each other. Communication has to come first. And we both have to agree on the boundaries. I nodded slowly, though a part of me wanted to pull back, to tell her I'd changed my mind. But I'd already committed to this path, and if this was what Emily needed, I'd do everything I could to make it work. We'll keep it casual, she said, as if this was something she'd already thought through. No serious relationships, no bringing anyone into our home. And we don't talk about it unless one of us needs to. I swallowed hard, feeling a tightness in my chest. The image of her with someone else haunted me, but I forced it down. This was what she wanted, what she needed, and I had to trust that we'd come out stronger on the other side. Fine, I said, my voice rough. We'll try it your way. The next few days passed in a surreal blur. We fell into a strained routine, each of us avoiding the elephant in the room, pretending that nothing had changed when, in truth, everything had. Emily went about her life as usual, but I could sense a new lightness in her, a quiet excitement that only made the whole situation feel more unsettling. She was happier, that much was clear, and I clung to that small sliver of hope that maybe, just maybe, this was the key to making things work. But each time she'd leave the house, I'd find myself pacing, haunted by thoughts I couldn't control. Was she seeing someone? Was she already involved with someone before I agreed to this? The questions ate away at me, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. One evening, a week after we'd had that fateful conversation, Emily told me she'd be going out with friends. She tried to sound casual, as if this was just another night out, but I could see the nervous flicker in her eyes. She was testing the boundaries, seeing if I'd react. I forced a smile, pretending to be unaffected. Okay, I said, my voice steady. Have fun. She hesitated, studying me, and for a moment, I thought she might change her mind. But then she nodded, gave me a small smile, and left, the door clicking shut behind her. As soon as she was gone, a crushing loneliness settled over me. The silence in the house was deafening, pressing down on me with a weight I hadn't anticipated. I tried distracting myself, putting on a movie, pouring a drink, but nothing could quiet the images flashing through my mind. Hours passed, each minute dragging by like an eternity. I kept glancing at the clock, waiting, hoping that she'd come home soon, that this night would end, and that I could wake up in the morning and pretend it hadn't happened. Finally, around midnight, I heard her key in the lock. I quickly sat up, forcing myself to look composed as she walked through the door. She looked different. Her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright, and there was a tension in her posture that hadn't been there before. She offered me a quick, almost shy smile, her gaze avoiding mine. I didn't ask her where she'd been, didn't press for details. Part of me didn't want to know. But the ache in my chest only grew, a gnawing feeling that wouldn't go away. "How was your night?" I asked, forcing myself to sound casual. "It was good," she replied, her voice soft. "I hope you weren't waiting up." I managed a weak smile. "No, I was just watching a movie." The lie slipped out easily, but the truth was, I'd spent the entire night thinking about her, wondering what she was doing, who she was with. It was torture, a kind of pain I hadn't anticipated. And as I looked at her now, standing in front of me, I realized that this arrangement might break me in ways I hadn't thought possible. The next few weeks passed in a strained silence, each of us trying to adjust to this new reality. Emily seemed lighter, happier, as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. But I was drowning. The nights she'd go out, I'd sit alone, my mind spiraling with questions and doubts. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd lost her, that she was slipping away from me, one night at a time. And yet, I couldn't bring myself to tell her to stop. I'd agreed to this, I'd made a commitment to try, to give her the freedom she craved. But each night that passed, I felt myself breaking a little more. One evening, I finally reached my breaking point. She'd just come home, her face glowing with a happiness that I hadn't seen in years. She gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, her voice light as she asked how my night had been. But I couldn't keep up the charade any longer. "Emily," I said, my voice cracking. "I don't think I can do this." Her smile faded, her expression shifting to one of concern. "Jack, what do you mean?" I looked at her, the woman I'd loved for so long, and felt a wave of sorrow wash over me. I thought I could handle this. I thought maybe it would bring us closer, somehow. But all I feel is lost. She reached out, touching my hand, her eyes filled with sympathy. "Jack, I didn't mean for this to hurt you." "I know," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "But I don't think I can keep pretending that this is okay. It's tearing me apart." She looked down, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. I didn't realize how hard this was for you." I nodded, feeling the weight of our decision settling between us. Maybe this is the end of the road for us, Emily. Maybe we want different things now." For a long moment, we sat in silence, each of us absorbing the finality of my words. I'd tried, God knows I'd tried. But sometimes, love isn't enough. And as painful as it was to admit, I knew that holding on would only hurt us both in the end. In the end, maybe letting go was the only way to set us both free. Emily's suggestion caught me off guard, though by now, maybe it shouldn't have. We were sitting across from each other, the silence between us as thick as fog, each of us trying to make this open marriage feel bearable, I suppose. She looked at me with a hint of sympathy and something I couldn't quite read, as if she were offering a solution she knew I'd never accept. "Jack," she said gently, her voice carrying a mix of patience and quiet determination. "Maybe it would be easier if you met someone too. Someone to see when I'm out. That way, when I leave, you're not just sitting here waiting." I blinked, absorbing her words. For her, this arrangement seemed to be working. She came home lighter, more vibrant, like some part of her was being fulfilled. But for me, every time she walked out that door, it was a punch to the gut. The idea of meeting someone else felt foreign, wrong. I didn't want anyone else, I wanted Emily. And yet, maybe she was right. Maybe it would make it easier, a way to distract myself, to fill the void that seemed to grow larger each time she left. "Meet someone?" I repeated, still struggling to wrap my mind around it. "You think that's going to help?" She nodded, her expression earnest. "I do. It's not fair that you're always left here, alone." This whole thing was my idea, and you're making sacrifices for me. But maybe if you were seeing someone too, you'd start to feel the same freedom I feel. Freedom. That word again. It grated against me, but a part of me wondered if maybe she was onto something. If she could be happier, more at ease, by seeing other people, maybe I could too. Maybe I was holding on to an idea of our marriage that no longer existed, clinging to a version of us that was long gone. Okay, I said slowly, feeling the weight of the decision settle on my shoulders. Maybe I'll try. But you have to understand, Emily, this isn't easy for me. She reached across the table, her hand covering mine, and squeezed. I know, Jack. And I appreciate it. I really do. We left it at that, an unspoken agreement between us to both venture into the unknown. That night, lying awake beside her, I found myself wondering what that would even look like. Where would I meet someone? How could I open myself up to someone else when the woman I loved was right beside me, slipping further away? A few days later, I found myself at a bar. It was the same bar I'd gone to when Emily had first dropped this bombshell on me. Only this time, I wasn't there to drown my sorrows. I was there to see if maybe I could take her advice. I sat at the counter, nursing a beer and glancing around the room, feeling like an outsider in my own life. I wasn't used to this, wasn't used to putting myself out there, or whatever they called it these days. The whole thing felt surreal, as if I were stepping into a role that didn't fit me. After what felt like an eternity, a woman sat down a few seats away. She was attractive, with a warm smile and an easygoing demeanor that somehow cut through the haze of discomfort I was feeling. I glanced her way, and to my surprise, she gave me a nod and a smile. It felt strange, almost wrong, but I forced myself to smile back, reminding myself that this was part of the deal, that maybe this was what I needed. Hi, I managed, my voice steady but my insides a tangled mess of nerves. Hi, she replied, her smile widening. Rough night? I chuckled, feeling a bit more at ease. You could say that. She didn't pry, didn't ask why I was here or what had brought me out tonight. Instead, we talked about simple things, work, hobbies, the usual small talk that didn't mean much but was easy and familiar. For a brief moment, I felt normal. I wasn't the husband of a woman who'd asked for an open marriage, I was just a guy having a drink with someone new. As the conversation flowed, I found myself relaxing, laughing even. Her name was Lisa, and she had an easy charm that made me feel comfortable, as if she were someone I could trust. We exchanged numbers at the end of the night, and as I walked home, I felt a strange mix of relief and guilt. This wasn't something I'd ever wanted, but maybe it was a way forward. Maybe Emily was right. The next time Emily went out, I made a decision, I'd meet Lisa again. It felt strange, almost like a betrayal, even though I had Emily's blessing. I kept telling myself that this was just a way to even the playing field, to make this whole mess a little easier. But as I sat across from Lisa, laughing at a story she was telling, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that I was losing something precious, something irreplaceable. Over the next few weeks, things changed. Emily and I continued our separate lives, each of us seeing other people, each of us trying to pretend that this was just another phase. And yet, I could feel the distance between us widening, a chasm that seemed impossible to bridge. I would come home from a night out with Lisa, and Emily would be waiting, a subtle smile on her face, asking how my night went. And each time, I'd lie, pretending that it was wonderful, that I was finding happiness in someone else's arms. But the truth was, I wasn't. I was drowning, sinking deeper into a life that felt foreign and empty. I missed Emily, missed the intimacy we once shared, the quiet moments that had once been the foundation of our marriage. And yet, I kept going, kept pretending, hoping that somehow this would lead us back to each other. One night, after Emily had gone out, I found myself lying awake, staring at the empty space beside me, a hollow ache filling my chest. The reality of what we'd become hit me like a freight train, a painful clarity that left me breathless. The next morning, I found her in the kitchen, sipping her coffee, looking as if everything was perfectly fine. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest, and walked over to her. "Emily," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I can't do this anymore." She looked up at me, surprise flickering in her eyes. "What do you mean?" "This open marriage, seeing other people, it's tearing me apart. I thought I could do it for you, but it's killing me. I don't want anyone else. I just want you." Her expression softened, and for a moment, I thought I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with, the woman I'd built a life with. But then her gaze shifted, a flicker of sadness crossing her face. "Jack. I don't know if I can go back," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know if I can give you what you need." The words hung between us, heavy and unspoken, the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. I'd tried, I'd done everything she'd asked, but in the end, it wasn't enough. We were too far gone, too lost in a world that no longer made sense. I left that morning, feeling both shattered and strangely free. I didn't know what the future held, but one thing was clear: the life I'd known was over, and all I could do was pick up the pieces and try to move forward.